So are you new to Fury or DPS? Well, let's help you out a little bit and get you on the road to furious destruction and hell and murder.
Quickly before we start, I want to shout out my Twitch stream where we go live every Sunday, Tuesday and Wednesday from 7:30 till 11 PM UK playing WoW, answering all your Fury Warrior questions. And if you want to further support us, then please do consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel and turning on your notifications. Anyway, on with the video.
So good afternoon, good evening, morning champions, and welcome back to another video. And this week we are doing a intro to Fury Warrior video. This is going to be very much aimed at people who have either never played Fury Warrior before, haven't played since like Wrath of the Lich King, or who are kind of new to World of Warcraft and new to damage specs. So if that applies to you, welcome, lovely to have you here. And let's get straight to it. So the first thing to kind of establish is, what is a Fury Warrior? What is Fury? And more, why is it called Fury at the start? It's a bit of a weird name. In short, Fury Warrior, you take your classic warrior knight, you take away its shield, give it a second weapon, and shove a load of drugs in it. And make it insane. He's the crazy cousin of a normal human being who's just a bit mental, really. And that's what Fury is. Fury is destruction, it is speed, it is carnage. It's just doing everything a little bit more aggressively than, say, a paladin would, because we have no control. That's why one of the main talents is called Recklessness and Rampage. But in short, Fury is a very fun and fast-paced class. If you enjoy things such as like button bashers and like Mortal Kombat, to be fair, this is actually going to be quite a good like matchup because it is so fast-paced. There's a lot of buttons to push, and it's pretty much just push them as quickly and as fast as possible. And that is your Fury Warrior. So let's get into what makes up a Fury Warrior. I'm going to go into some details as well to explain certain things that Fury Warriors do, which are different potentially to other classes, as well as explain why we make certain decisions. So first thing we're going to look at today is gearing and stats. So off the bat, as I said a minute ago, Fury Warrior is a two-handed class. So instead of having a sword and shield or just having one sword, like you would assume that most warriors do, Fury has two, and that's kind of the main draw for it, is that it's carrying two swords at all times. You're doing absolute carnage with it, and these could be any swords. There's things in games called two-handers and one-handers, and they both put out different amounts of damage and do things at different speeds. And by carrying two of the same kind of thing, so for example, if you're carrying two two-handers or two one-handers, you get a different buff, be it single-minded fury or Titan's grip, and they kind of differentiate the damage that you put out as well as the speed in which you attack by. Next from that, you kind of have the actual gear that you wear, and Fury Warriors are plate wearers. There's no real reason. They decided it in the game 15 years ago. We wear plate. It's the best option for us. Wear plate. Just wear plate. But gearing is integral, especially as a Fury Warrior, to making you a better player. The higher the damage your weapon puts out and the higher stats you have on your gear, the more damage you're going to be putting out overall. Unlike other specs, we are very, very, very gear dependent, especially down to our weapons. Our weapons have to be good in order for us to put out good damage, quite rightly so. But one of the main things we're going to be focusing on here is stats, and stats are what make up your weapons. So you've got your primary stats and your secondary stats. Your primary stats are things such as strength and overall health and such things such as that. And then your secondary stats are kind of the intricacies which make you a better player and make you better as a class, kind of thing. Quite rightly so, as a warrior, you're going to expect it's going to be strength. It's going to be your main primary stat. So any armor set that you get, any gear that you get, you want to make sure that it's increasing your strength. And then you want to have a look at the secondary stats just below it. I'll put like a graph here next to me to kind of explain it in better detail. You have a list of secondary stats, and as a Fury Warrior, there's a specific order in which you want to prioritize your stats at. For us, this priority is haste, mastery, crit, and then versatility and intellect. It goes in that order of priority. You want to make sure that you have the highest haste and the highest mastery as possible. They're kind of on a similar level, haste always being higher. Definitions for these are quite as simple as haste is the speed in which you can attack at. So mastery is kind of the next best thing, which during a specific phase as a Fury Warrior, which is the enraged phase, which we'll go about in our rotation part of this video, you put out additional damage during your enraged phase, and you put out additional damage by being enraged anyway. This ups that a little bit higher. And then crit, if you've played RPGs and MMOs before, then you know that crit is just down to critical strike, and it's the double damage you put out, and there's an increased chance on that. And that is your priority list. That is just stats. Your gear, again, you always go for eye level at lower levels. If you're leveling up at the moment, always go for an increase in eye level, and then have a look at the secondary stats. Are they boosting a haste or mastery? There's some intricacies to make this even better. So when you get to that kind of like level 60 level, you can download an add-on called SimC. I've got a whole video up here about this, and you can help sim your stats to make sure that you're getting the best possible. However, generally speaking, as you're leveling your experience, eye level is going to be the best thing to go for, and then kind of just have a look at those secondary stats. If you press Control or Shift on your keyboard, you can do a comparison and you can see if it's an increase in those secondary stats of haste, mastery and crit. On to the next one, which is Legendaries. So Legendaries is our next thing, which is kind of, again, it's part of our gear, and Legendaries are only accessible when you hit level 60 in Shadowlands. And they're a new thing that kind of returned to the game that we haven't had for a while, but there are some good Legendaries out there. If you're a new player and you don't know what Legendary to go for, your go-to Legendary is Signet of the Tormented Kings or Deathmaker. Generally speaking, Signet of the Tormented Kings is the one that you go for. It's a ring, it stays there, you have to level it up by doing endgame content. You get it by doing endgame content, but you don't have to go too far into it. You can do LFR, get yourself into a pug raid and just go for it kind of thing. These are your best two Legendaries, and Signet of the Tormented Kings, I'll put it next to me, but it has an ability. Basically, when you cast one of two things, it will cast automatically one of two other things. So if you cast Bladestorm, it does an Avatar or Recklessness. If you cast Recklessness, it does an Avatar or Bladestorm. Really, really powerful, and we'll go into the intricacies of that in a second. But next, we need to talk about talents, because they will make up everything. So talents, if you've played RPGs, you've played MMOs before, if you've played other classes of World of Warcraft before, you know that talents are very, very important. And there's specific ones that we need to choose as a Fury Warrior. There are some intricacies to this. There are some people who say that others are better. This is my personal preference. This doesn't always mean, what I say doesn't always mean it is the best of the best, but this works for me. This works for a lot of players out there. This works for a lot of high-end players out there. So let's have a look at them. So I'll put the screen up now as well so you can see it in front of you. But on your first row, basically every 10 levels from level 15, you get yourself a new talent which you can choose. And these can be passive or they can be an actual ability that you put on your spell bar. Passive, in short, again, if you've not played MMO before, passive just means something that adds to your overall stats in your class. So on the first row, we're going to be going for Fresh Meat. Fresh Meat means basically that one of your spells, Bloodthirst, is going to trigger Enrage the first time it attacks anything, and it increases the triggering of Enrage by 15% overall. This is a good one because it means that when you first go and attack something, you can ensure that you're in your Enrage phase straight away. And as I said previously, being enraged is good, and you put out more damage when you're enraged. If you've got Mastery, then it's even higher. So as you can understand, you having this talent, meaning that you're always enraged the first time you attack something, is beneficial for your class. On the second tier, on 25, we're going to be going for Stormbolt. Most people do go for double time here, but Stormbolt just gives you an additional ability to interrupt others with. I'll go into interrupts in a bit. But Stormbolt, basically, there are some abilities that you can't just interrupt. They need a stun, and Stormbolt is that stun that you want to use. On tier 30, or the third tier, you want to be going for Massacre. Massacre just helps your execute and or condemn phase last longer. I'll go into details again about what execute/condemn means, but it's one of your it's your starting and your final point of being a warrior. When you're in a fight, you put out additional damage at the start and the end of the fight with condemn, and Massacre just means that that final bit can go out for longer. It goes out for 35% rather than going down for 20. Then in 35, we're going to be going for War Paint, decreasing the amount of damage that you're getting. On rank 40, we're going to be going for Cruelty. On rank 45, you're going to be going for Bladestorm. This is an AoE ability. This whole row kind of adds to your AoE, but Bladestorm is the optimal choice here. And then your final talent row is Anger Management on 50. You want to go for Anger Management, again, mainly because, as you can see by the text, the reason you go for this is because I mentioned it at the start, but you have a big spell called Recklessness, and Anger Management basically just lowers down the cooldown on this ability. Instead of it being 1 minute, basically every time you do 20 rage output, so every time you spend 20 rage, it decreases the cooldown by 1 second. This is good. This is very beneficial if you're putting out a lot of damage, which we'll go into in a second on how to do that. It means that your cooldowns will be significantly shorter. So that is your basic talent build, and that is kind of one of your go-to ones. This works in endgame content for Mythic Plus. This works for leveling. I highly do recommend this as one. Again, like I said, it might not be optimal and things may change over the coming weeks, but this is a very solid talent build, and a lot of the top players are using this exact talent build. So you know it's going to be good to some extent. Next, we're going to go into our rotation and what a rotation is. So as I said, this guide is very much for new players who possibly haven't played World of Warcraft before, possibly haven't played a damage class before, or haven't played an MMO before. So we're going to go into really basic terms as to what the rotation is. And basically, your rotation is the order in which you want to cast spells to put out the most damage possible. As you can expect, as a damage class, the higher the damage output, the better performance you are going to be. By casting things in a specific order, you're going to trigger certain abilities and certain buffs on your character to ensure you're putting out the most damage. So I'm going to really break this down. I'm going to try and be as simple as possible with this. I'm going to put an infograph next to me so you can physically see the spells, but this is going to be your rotation. So the two main goals as a Fury Warrior are being enraged and casting Rampage and Recklessness. These are your 3 things to be doing and working towards. There are certain ways to get there quicker, and that's what we're going to go over now. You need to look at your character from the get-go. Do you have 90 or 80 rage? If yes, cast Rampage, and that will cause you to be enraged and get the enraged buff. If not, then you need to either work up to 90, or if you have Fresh Meat Talented, cast Bloodthirst. But the overarching thing is to ensure that you are enraged. So again, infographic is going to be here. Let me break it down for you. So you're going to be casting Rampage if your enrage is not inactive, or you are at 80% rage. You are then going to be casting Recklessness on cooldown. So basically what that means is when it is available for you to cast, you are casting this spell. This will give you a buff in crit, and it will give you a buff in haste and speed, and your abilities will be coming out quicker. Next, if you have a execute or condemn trigger, you're going to be casting this. You are then going to be going into Bloodthirst. Again, Bloodthirst can help you become enraged if you are not already. So for example, if that first step hasn't been done and you can't cast Rampage, you can cast your Recklessness, execute, and then Bloodthirst to become enraged, and then cast a Rampage there. You're then going to cast 2 Raging Blows when it's at its 2 charges. You'll see a little 2 in the corner of it. You're then going to go for Bloodthirst again. You are then going to go for Blade Storm if you are enraged. You're then going to add an additional Raging Blow in, 1 or 2 if you've had the additional trigger for additional rage, and then you're going to do a Whirlwind as a filler. And this is kind of your priority list / your rotation. And we say priority list as well because it means if certain abilities are triggering first, you're going to be going for them. So if you're not enraged, you're going to be prioritizing that Bloodthirst, that Rampage. If you have an execute phase happening, if you have the ability to cast execute, you're prioritizing that over casting something like Raging Blow. But that is how it looks. That was a visual. Please take a screenshot. Hopefully I explain this in an understandable way. Rotations can be horrible. I've got a whole video up here about me actually physically doing the rotation to make it look easy for you. Next, we have a thing that called your cleaving rotation. So cleaving is when you're doing more damage to other targets instead of just one. So if you have 3 targets around you, any damage you do to the first one will be spread out to those ones around you. We are very good at this as a Fury Warrior, and this is how to do it. So say you're stood away and you've got 3 targets over there. The first thing you're going to do is charge in and then cast your Whirlwind. Again, like I said, I've got a whole video on rotation so you can actually see it in action. But you're going to do your charge, your Whirlwind in order to get your Whirlwind buff. And I'll put the infograph here. Whirlwind buff basically means your additional 2 abilities will be spread out onto your other targets. You can understand why that's a good thing. After you've cast your Whirlwind, you're going to have a Condemn trigger if you've gone for Venthyr in your end game. Otherwise, Condemn is always execute. You're then going to cast a Bloodthirst, another Whirlwind, a Rampage, a Recklessness, Bloodthirst, and then another Whirlwind. In short, every 3rd ability you cast has to be a Blade Storm to ensure that you're keeping your Whirlwind buff up. You basically use the exact same priority list as before, however, just every 3rd one, you add in Whirlwind. And there's a couple of nuances when you get to level 60, which I'll go over now. If this doesn't apply to you, jump on to the next stage. I've got the chapters down below. So if you have Signet the Tormented Kings, there's going to be 2 versions that's going to happen and 2 things you need to do to ensure that you're putting out the most damage. You will know what Signet the Tormented Kings is proccing when you cast Recklessness because you'll see it physically. If you get bigger, you're having Avatar. If you start spinning, then you've got Blade Storm. In short, if Signet procs a Blade Storm, then you want to cast Rampage, Blade Storm again, Whirlwind, and then Rampage. If Signet procs Avatar, you want to be casting Condemn, Whirlwind, Rampage, Blade Storm, Rampage again. And I'll put a little thing next to me as well. If you are getting Rampage, if you're getting to your 90 Rampage during a Blade Storm ability, you want to use that cancel macro to ensure that you can cast your Rampage as soon as possible. And that's your rotation. Like I said, there's a whole video based on that. I'll put the link down below, and I linked it a couple minutes ago. Rotation can be one of the hardest things. That's why I have a dedicated video to do that. Talking rotation can be quite hard. That's why I have the visuals next to me. I hope they've been useful. If they have, chuck a comment down below. If not, I can write them down below in the comments as well. Possibly will write down the entire rotation in a comment down below as well, just to make it a little bit easier for you guys. But next, we're going to go on to other key spells you might want to have on your toolbar in your toolkit, as if you're aware. So one of the first good spells to have, especially in endgame content and when you're running dungeons as you're leveling, if you have it, if you've unlocked it, is Spell Reflection. Spell Reflection is basically a defensive ability which will reflect the spell that is being cast to you back at that enemy. Nice and easy, quite logical in why it works. Use it. Next up, we've got another protection ability which is Ignore Pain, and it costs up to 40 to 60 rage to cast this ability, but in short, you ignore 50% of all damage taken, up to 700% of your overall attack power. This can really save your skin in some kind of tricky situations, and if you have the rage to do this, even if you have a Rampage, if you're about to die, cast this. Help your healer out a little bit. Another 2 good spells to have in your toolkit are Enraged Regeneration and Rallying Cry. Both are very long cooldowns, as you can see next to me, but both again help you and actually help out your group. So with Enraged Regeneration, it reduces the damage taken by 30%, and Bloodthirst restores an additional 20% of your overall health. Who doesn't want more health? And then Rallying Cry puts out a radial ability, rallying your whole team and giving them an additional 15% temporary health for 10 seconds. This will help your healer in a tricky situation be able to quickly just heal you and heal everyone and make sure that temporary 10% has actually been worth it. So those are some useful ones to have in your toolkit. I recommend initially getting your rotation down and learning the order in which you cast your spells before you start introducing these in there, because these it has for me personally, when I was first starting out, they kind of confused my hands and what to push and what buttons to press. Get your rotation down, add these in, and then you'll know when to cast them. So in short, that is Fury Warrior. As I'm fully aware, this video is currently on 20 minutes worth of recording. This is quite a long video, however this has been fully tailored towards those people who are brand new to the class, who are brand new to World of Warcraft, or who are just interested in a little bit of a further explanation of Fury Warrior. As always, as the time of filming this, all this information is accurate. All this information you can be found on Icy Veins. I'll put a link down below. This is your #1 resource to kind of get written data. I like to do these videos because, one, I like to put my personal experience through it, and I enjoy giving someone a auditory way of taking in that information. Reading a big document telling you how to be good at a game can be quite hard to do. Visuals and audio always work out better. Hopefully this has helped you. Hopefully this has sparked some thoughts into, I'm going to start doing Fury Warrior stuff now, because you should. It's one of the best classes. It is that best middle road class though. I hope this guide has helped you. I hope you go out and enjoy your Fury Warrior. If you have any questions, please do jump down to our Discord, there's a link below, or jump over to our Twitch channel and we'll do some live chatting and kind of support there. But other than that, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy being a Fury Warrior, and I'll catch you next week. Bye bye.